Your stools, come up. Come up. Back there, come up. Your stool. Alright, make it. Slide, some slide down, some slide down, some slide down. Cool.
Get like this, so you can see. Then once I do this, then you can move.
Okay. Go. Alright, what did we start yesterday?
The base.
Huh?
The base.
What's the base called? Starts with an F. Huh? Not the front. No, y'all talking about the elevations when we talking about the front. Alright, what does the front elevation show? What does it show?
The height.
Height, good job. What does the rear elevation show?
The height.
Height of what?
The rear height.
Okay. Now, in order to do anything, we gotta have a what? We gotta start off with a what? Starts with an F. F.
Lost and
And a word, and some letters. There you go. Foundation, there you go. Good job. Didn't we talk about that yesterday? Okay, so we have our foundation. Okay? Now, guess what? We have a guest speaker in here today. This is Mr. Spain. He's an architect. Okay? So what do y'all say? Alright, he's taking the time out of his day to come here and talk to y'all about the careers in architecture, okay? So what do y'all say?
Thank you.
Oh, we gotta say this together. Come on. How do we say it?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna put it on the floor. Here you go.
alright, hey everybody, I'm happy to be here, I really am. I know Mr. Jarrett has been doing a really good job with you guys. I've seen the stuff on Instagram. I'm really impressed. Whatever you guys decide to do, I'm sure you're going to be successful. Mainly because you're getting some of this exposure in this class and how to do it. So, how many of you guys know what an architect does? Anybody just guess? Yes. Build. We set it up for building. Yes. Structures. Yes.
You make like the blueprints for
Contractors. Yep. Yes.
You put the wood and then the people put it on that.
Okay, so some of that is by contractors too, but a lot of what architects do is design buildings, spaces, places. We work with contractors. We work with mechanical, electrical, structural engineers. We work with all of those people to do buildings that you actually touch, live in, work in, spaces outside that you walk around. We kind of touch and do all of those things. And part of what Mr. Jarrett is doing in his classes are helping us architects realize the things that we imagine that we need to have built. Without people like Mr. Jarrett and those that he knows, and those engineers and construction people, a lot of what we think about would be a little more difficult to actually build. So I want to show you how these things not only are connected, but it's important to even think about it before you start to build, before you start to construct, before you put all these things together. And I want to do that by talking to you about imagine, create, and realize. I want you to say that with me. We're going to what?
Imagine, create, realize.
Exactly. So imagining. So for me as an architect, I can meet a client and they'll tell me what they want, right? If it's a developer, he said, listen, I want a really nice office building that has glass, light in. I want a nice lobby so when people come in, they kind of like feel welcome, this, that, and the other. So I start to imagine what that looks like for me. So I take a piece of paper, and from my head, down my arm, to a pen, to something, a piece of paper, I make that idea, my imagination, up and down my arm, thinking about what I'm drawing, and imagining it in these types of sketches to see what I think it could be. This is all from my imagination and some of the training that I've done as I became an architect. So, not just in imagining, you can imagine it, you can want to be something, right? You can say, yeah, I want to be a restaurant guy, I want to be a chef, whatever, but you have to learn how to cook, right? You have to know how to manage the restaurant before you can do that. So after you imagine, you have to start to create those things that are important to get you to where you want to be. So if I can do a scribble scrabble drawing like that, at some point I have to think about what an elevation is going to look like. 1 second. Or what a plan is going to look like. I know you guys are looking at that. Here's another plan. When you talked about blueprints, you know, what are those going to look like? So I can't just take a quick sketch like this and try to get a building like this. I have to start to create those things and make it happen. Once I create those things and start to see how it starts to come together, if I do a good job, I can actually see those buildings built, and I can realize it. Let me start again. See this sketch right here? This was my first imagination of, can anybody point out on this page where it is? Right. And here. So this sketch, this thing that was in my head, what I imagined, what I dreamed it could be, started to become this as it was being built, and then finally looking like that when it was done. Yes?
Did you create all of these?
I did. All of these are my sketches. These are my creations from those sketches. And these are all the buildings that I've designed. Yeah, there's a cat. So this is the inside of an office building. This is an office building out near King of Prussia. This is an office building out in the suburbs. This is a parklet. This used to be in Logan, right? This is a recreation center. This is a recreation center. So all of these things again, I kind of like imagine, create it, and realize. You had a question? Say again? Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let me give you a little bit of my background before I show you another imagine and design, imagine, create, and realize. So again, I tell you my name is Michael. I grew up here in Philadelphia. I went to a public school here in Philadelphia, Morton McMichael Elementary School in West Philly. And I had an older brother that would always draw. He was really good at drawing. And as a little brother, he used to follow behind him. I used to always ask him, hey, can you draw Scooby-Doo for me? Can you draw Fred Flintstone? Can you draw Superman? And he would do it. He was a really good big brother. But then, as he got older, wanted to hang out with his friends, started liking girls and all that stuff. And I was like, can you draw this? He's like, do it yourself. And that's when I started drawing. And that got me interested in it. Have any of you heard of the show The Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
You know, Mike Brady, one of the Brady Bunch, is an architect. So I saw Mike Brady on TV. I had my brother having me make me draw, and I said, maybe I can put those two things together. Then I went to Dobbins Vocational Technical High School in North Philadelphia for 3 or 4 years. I was able to draft, learn about architecture, design, and in my junior year in high school, I went to a summer program at Cornell University, and I was able to do 6 weeks to really study design and architecture. I did really well in that program, and I applied to the school the next year, and I was fortunate enough to get into college at Cornell University. For 5 years, I studied structures, I studied history of architecture, I studied design, I studied how people actually live and work and move in spaces. I graduated, came back here to Philadelphia, and I started working in architecture, and I've been doing architectural design for over 30 years. And I also teach at Jefferson University as a professor. And right now, I'm starting a program that actually goes into schools like this to expose kids to architecture, design, and how to think through a design process. Yes?
What was your most successful building that you designed?
I'm going to show you that in a second. It's the one, and Mr. Jarrett, there's someone at the door. There's one that the biggest project I've done, the one where I had the most design that I've done, and I think you guys might recognize it when I show it to you. Yes, and I'll get to you in a second.
My sister also draws, and she draws like robot cars and stuff like that.
Now,
Like sketches.
right, now that could be for industrial designers and stuff like that. That's good. Yes. I'll come back to you. Yes.
This building looks very familiar.
Yeah, well, it was never built, but I'm going to show you, so remember those sketches. I'm going to show you in my slideshow part of that too. Yes.
How much they get paid?
Say again?
How much they get paid?
Ah, good question. So I'll give you a range, right? So way back when I started, the range from just coming out of college, and remember, this is way back, was between $20,000 and $25,000 a year. But that was way back, right?
Then you get like 100,000.
So now, after 30 plus years, I'm gonna give you a range. I make between 80 and 110. So you gotta figure it out, right? So that's the general range. Now remember, I've been doing it for a long time. Yes.
Are you like the boss?
I wasn't the boss of the last firm that I was in, but I was the leader of all the design work. So anything that was designed came across my desk, or I consulted with people that were designing to kind of really make sure that it was exactly what we wanted it to be. No, it's not Chipotle, but it is an area where you actually eat and kind of sit. So it's nice that you saw that. All right, any other questions before we go to the slideshow? No? All right, why don't you guys, now you can sit over there.